And we check in on the Bulls now. I know this much. There's been a lot of great players and coaches that have come and gone in Chicago, but there's been one mainstay covering the team for these many years, and now he exclusively does it for Bulls.com, Sam Smith. Sam, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Yeah, it turns out they all move on to better things, and I'm still there.
I guess it's a subjective thing, as to whether they're better or not. But you're still thriving, still putting out some great stuff. Let's ask you first of all. Road trip got off to a great start last night, without question, as the Bulls won in L.A. over the Clippers without Derrick Rose, without Pau Gasol. They're kind of getting used to playing without Derrick Rose again, unfortunately. What is their status now for the next few days? Obviously, the Bulls have a game Thursday night in Sacramento before they come here on Friday.
Yeah, Pau probably. He's his was sort of a surprise. Came up the last, after the game Saturday, sort of be okay. Practiced and shoot around Monday in Los Angeles, and just didn't feel quite right. So it doesn't seem like there's anything major with him. He most likely will play when they're in Sacramento. Rose went through some of the shoot around. They're going to practice here in L.A. Tomorrow, and then go up to Sacramento. I would be surprised. I shouldn't say surprised. You never know. I don't really expect him to play these next couple of games, given it's a hamstring. Given it's those things can generally usually take weeks, even without a tear. Dwayne Wade has had it a couple of times. He's out again indefinitely. I think he missed 9 or 10 games last year. So I think, doing well enough. They've got, more depth this year. And I think they're making more of a conscious effort. Not that they weren't protective before, but I think there's more of an effort this year to let's not push it. So I personally don't think Derrick will be playing this week.
Who's talking about Rose the most in Chicago? The fans, the talk shows, the writers. Are they still saying that they think he should be playing more, or they've dropped that completely?
No, they haven't dropped it. It's I've seen this unfortunately many times over the years, that the people who can do least, it's sort of like a reverse of Richard Nixon claiming he had all this support from the silent majority. And I think it's kind of a reverse. It's a very vocal minority, but a lot of them, talk radio has a forum, Twitter and social media. So there's so much more of a public forum now where people are screaming in invective. But there are any number of cases over the years. Players, I remember in baseball particularly, you guys probably too young. James Rodney Richard, a great pitcher with Houston.
Sure, we remember him.
Yeah. Fans were, berating him. This was, obviously long before social media and any sports talk radio, about he was a coward and he didn't want to play, and then he had a stroke while he was on the mound.
Yeah.
And
he had a fastball about 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean, this is just lunacy. Derrick's had 2 major knee surgeries. And I know his comments last week about, he wanted to be, prepared. I think there's just clearly, misunderstood, because all his teammates, former teammates, current teammates, pretty much everybody who watches NBA basketball, and other than the TNT halftime crew, which, based on watching that show, they don't watch basketball. Sided with Derrick, knows how hard he works, knows what 2 years of rehab is about, and knows this, kid is a, terrific competitor. But, people have been saying to him for 2 years, you not so much you got to rest so you'll be okay, when you're, done with basketball, but you got to rest so you'll, be careful so you'll have a long career. What it's coming down to in a lot of respects, and there's nothing Derrick can probably do about it, because that's who he is. If you saw him play before he got hurt, and even back, beginning of this season, the beginning of last season, unfortunately got hurt in Portland last year when he was having a great game, his best game back. is nobody puts a torque on their body like he does, with the cuts and the acceleration. And, it's after these kind of surgeries, that's hard to withstand. So he's having to be more cautious. But, he's at the gym all the time, rehabbing all the time, which is not that much fun. So, yeah, there's an outpouring of vindictiveness, but I think we find that pretty much everywhere in society these days.
Now, one of your most recent columns was entitled 24 Most Deserving All-Stars. And you took a look at 12 in each conference, the guys that you felt were most deserving of being in the All-Star game. And obviously, from a Blazer perspective, we look at it, and LaMarcus Aldridge, a three-time All-Star in reality, made that list that you put together. Damian Lillard, first-time All-Star last year, did not. So how close did Damian come to making your list, and why ultimately did you leave him off?
Well, he's obviously a terrific player. And I always ask when it comes up to the actual pick in the All-Star game, everybody, starts talking in, late January about the snubs. Which Western Conference guard would you like to take off?
Kobe Bryant.
Kobe Bryant, who's leading the league in scoring.
Yeah, 1 and 9. Isn't it the All-Star game? They always say you get rewarded because you help your team win games. Isn't this a
no? That's a bias.
He's taken more shots than anybody in the NBA.
There's no rules set down. I didn't break it that way, but I'm quite sure Kobe will be voted in. There's no question about that. He's, other than he and LeBron, are probably the most popular players playing in the game today. So that's a reality. And the fact is, the guy has come back from serious injury, and very serious injury, Achilles. Anyone knows what that is? It basically ended the careers of Isaiah Thomas and Dominique Wilkins, and never come back like this guy has come back. And, yeah, he's taken a lot of shots. He's always taken a lot of shots.
But
he's still a tremendously high-level player. Well, if you look at that roster, I think if you put Kobe on the Blazers roster, he'll have the Blazers record. Look who they're playing. They got back Nick Young tonight, and it's like they're going to win this game. But yeah, there's probably not a player on the Laker roster playing that I'm not sure could make the Blazer team. And so it's hard for me to dispute that in an all-star setting you don't want Kobe Bryant on the team when he's leading the league in scoring. And then beyond that, no offense to Lillard, but Stephen Curry's better, has been playing better. Klay Thompson's having a terrific year. Chris Paul, it's no offense. He's a young player, and the West is deep in guards, and he's just not as at a high level as those veteran guards yet.
Now, you have a new book that we want to talk about as well, and about a subject that you know very, very well.
Right. When I come up with my second idea, I'll let you know. But I'm still working on my first one, as Michael Jordan, and So actually, what I did, I've heard in the last couple of years more commentary on the Jordan rules, which is a kind of a diary of season, and it was modeled after David Halberstam's book on the Blazers. That was my favorite basketball book ever, and I felt that if I ever wrote a book, that's the book I would want to write, because that was the best book I ever read on basketball. And so I got luckier than David did, because I had Michael Jordan, he had Bill Walton hurt, and I had a team that happened to win the title the year I was doing a diary. But in the last couple of years, when people sort of get around to it, I've come to realize that if you're under 30, which is a lot of people from what I understand, you really didn't experience that Jordan phenomenon. And the title is sort of self-explanatory. Kobe's the next Jordan and LeBron. There is no next Jordan, because it's way more than basketball. It's culture and fashion and the shoes and the look and the influence and be like Mike and everything. So what I did was sort of a kind of narrative of his career, especially his early career. And there was a lot I went into too on the Blazers thing. Obviously it's probably a sore point over the years, passing him up. And I talked to Jack, before he passed away, and some of the Blazers, and one of the interesting things I kind of found out, I didn't realize myself, is that they were kind of, despite their comments, they were having trouble with Clyde at the time, and they weren't sold on Clyde after picking him as much as they've said since, afterward that we had a shooting guard and everything, and Clyde became a Hall of Famer, but it still wasn't leading them toward Jordan. They still wanted the center. But it was interesting to hear. I really wasn't aware, of that, that uncertainty about Clyde at the time when the draft was coming up. And I had talked before with Bill Fitch and the Houston guys and Jack about, was there ever a, which Keem sort of mentioned in a book he wrote that, a pairing of, Keem and Jordan in the draft, and they would trade Portland to Ralph Sampson. Which in retrospect looked like, would have been great, would have been right. The better move for Portland would have been, fabulous for Houston. But Houston was now, they believed in those two big guy thing, and they did make the finals a year later. But, sort of digress there. But so I kind of, it was narrative and oral history of Bird and Magic and cross-section of David Stern and Marv Albert, and all these people had experienced in the mid-'80s and late '80s this explosion of the NBA, and this guy being right in the middle of it and, representing, what the NBA was, to become. So, so thanks for mentioning that, and I think I think people would enjoy it.
I was in Chicago, obviously, for the start of that success that the Bulls had, and as somebody who certainly was even more at the center of everything, as you look back at things, in sports, teams are always fighting to win one championship, let alone 6, and to have a dynasty the way that Bulls team did. How do you explain how? Because it didn't have to be broken up. It just seems like it was a massive case of a whole lot of egos, going in different directions, or people trying to take credit for things that maybe they shouldn't have taken credit for. But it wasn't as if there was a tragic injury. We can point to some things that have happened over the franchise years of the Blazers, as saying, a guy that was supposed to be a star, ends up getting hurt and never, amounts to what he was supposed to be. That's one thing, but it wasn't anything like that. It didn't have to end. It didn't have to get broken up when it did, and that has to be all the more frustrating for anybody looking back at the history of the Bulls, that as great as that time period was, it could have been even greater.
Well, excuse me. I would disagree, actually. I think they were done. And, there was tremendous dysfunction at the end. And I go into, a lot of that as well, with Jerry Krause and his feuds with Phil Jackson by that point. But that team was done. And I know, Pippen looked okay in Portland, but he wasn't anywhere near the player he was. He was obviously, he was a floor leader, but you could see he had no explosion anymore. He was just, a sort of a ball mover, floor ground player, in his last gasp there. Jordan did not want to play anymore. He was worn out, much like he was worn out in '93. And he made clear to the ownership at the time, because that was a lockout, that he's not playing. He's done, just like he said in '93 for different reasons. But with the fervor he put into the game, like few do, he just always was a candidate for quicker burnout. And then you did see when he came back with Washington, then he had knee problems, had to have knee surgery right away. Rodman was a complete basket case. Went to Dallas and destroyed that team right before, they had the Dirk oncoming. They would have been a playoff team that first year. They hadn't brought him in. So it was, you can always sort of second guess those things, and because we always look at, Americans look at everything as anyone would, in behind and saying, well, it was inevitable. It happened, but you don't know. We assume, well, since the Bulls, the last time we saw them, they won. It's like every year, everybody picks the next champion to be the guy, who won last time, because that's the last successful team we saw. And so I think they were done and stumbled into breaking it up. I think they would have had a really bad ending at the end there. Jordan Jordan, had it. He had felt he carried everybody too far. Pippen's injury in the finals was way more serious than anybody realized. And when he had surgery after that, summer, he knew he was done. But he wanted a big contract, and he went to Houston, and Houston realized it, and that he wasn't that player anymore. And like I said, Rodman was complete lunatic by then. Not he wasn't before, but he really was. And so, a lot of stuff would fail in the fights and all that sort of got a lot of headlines. But I don't think they were a championship team anymore.
Sam, thank you so much for the visit as always. Enjoy the next few days, and we'll look forward to seeing you when you get to Portland with the team on Friday. And good luck with the book. I'm sure it will be a success, as all of your books seem to be. So we'll look forward to reading it.
All right, we'll see you Friday. Thanks a lot.
Sam Smith, Bulls.com. Interesting. Says that he thinks they were on their dying days anyway after the 6 championship.
Well, like he said, you never can tell. They might have, there was a lot of pride with that group, and maybe they would have had one more year, but
yeah,
who knows?
Seemed like some egos too. Jerry Krause was taking a lot of credit. Phil Jackson was at odds with him, so